to order. The first thing that we will do is, can I have a motion to approve the June minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor to approve the June minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say no. The ayes have it. The June minutes have been approved. The third thing on our agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the community that would like to make a comment on something that is not on tonight's meeting agenda? Okay. We will now move on to line item 4, which is the Acres Project temporary use permit. And I will defer to our staff to bring us up to speed on this. And if anyone's going to speak to it, now is the opportune time. Thank you.
So the Acres Project applied for a temporary use permit for a farm stand proposed at 2400 Burnell Road. The Acres Project is a local nonprofit that provides opportunities for us autistic and neurodiverse adults producing and selling fresh produce, plants, and other homemade goods and crafts. The temporary use permit is for a farm stand structure to be located off Burnell Road and along a private driveway for cash sales from July through September, and the stand will be open daily from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. In your packet, it was provided to you photographs of the site showing the proposed parking area and the farm stand, as well as details on the sales itself.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any comments on this item?
Does staff have any comments or concerns about granting this? Is there a recommendation to grant this? Okay.
Okay. Does anyone from the public have any comments on this? Okay. Then, hearing none, we will then call the question. All those in favor?
I think we need a motion.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the Acres Project?
I make a motion.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those that are against say no. The ayes have it to grant a temporary use permit to the Acres. Thank you. Okay. Now we are on to the fifth item, which is the 160 West Clearview Avenue rezoning request. I believe that this was discussed at the Board of Supervisors on the 21st, and they referred it to the Planning Commission.
Yes, that's correct.
So, okay, we will listen to anyone's thoughts that are here from staff, and also anyone from the HFL Corporation as well.
So we'll just give you a brief rundown of kind of where we are in the process. So we received a request from HFL to rezone 160 Clearview Avenue, which is the former Seven Mountains media site, from R2 low density to R3 medium density. They have a purchase agreement in place, and they intend to develop a 31-unit, 55-plus affordable housing apartment complex on the property. At the board meeting, the board did refer this back to you, and so what we're asking tonight is we would like you to give your concurrence if you think it should move forward, and then we would have staff do a complete analysis, and you would see that at your August meeting. The important thing to remember here is that Pennsylvania does not allow contract zoning. So they could say they're going to put in affordable units and then get the rezoning, and they can do whatever is allowed in that zoning district. It doesn't have to be it wouldn't be a contract with the township saying they're gonna do those affordable units. So that's just something to consider as you go through this process. It is next to R2 zoning, so it makes sense, and that's why it's not spot zoning, it would be allowed to be looked at. So as you think about this further and have the staff analysis, that's something to think about.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this before we talk to the planning commission?
Hi, Chad Staff with the Corporation. So Amy's absolutely correct, and it was brought up at the supervisor meeting that our intent here is that we would like to put 55 plus affordable housing project in. That is absolutely dependent upon whether or not we get THFA funding for it. This particular development group has done the Lime Rock Terrace project, the Evergreen Heights project. These are the kind of developments that we like, we want to take care of and try to produce that affordable housing for the community. So that's our goal as a company, as to the housing that we're trying to do in this community. However, if we do not get the PHFA funding, we would still go ahead and move forward with an apartment building. It would be 31 units. We know that that's what the yield of the property is. It will not be student housing. It would be ideally some sort of affordable or workforce housing type apartment units. There could be some market rate, but for the most part, we're going to want to get the greatest deal that we can based upon the zoning. And again, our goal would be we want to do the PHFA funded project, but that's competitive. If we don't get the PHFA funding, we still want to move forward with the apartment building. So again, just to bring that up, to be transparent.
Well, thank you for your transparency.
I have a question. What's the acreage?
Two. It's about 2.25.
2.25, okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has any questions on the planning commission?
A question about PFHA funding. How long, like when do you apply, like what's the timeline for that?
So PHFA funding, so it's a rolling scenario. So you make a submission and they meet, I believe, once a year. And it depends on how many applications they have as to the process of that. Who's going to be covered, what percentage of projects are going to be covered. We've been successful with the project because we put a lot of money up front and we take care of the engineering and design and get everything worked out. So we tend to be pretty high on the list for PHFA funding, but there's still a restriction on the amount of funds they give out throughout the whole state. So again, there's no guarantee with it. Again, our goal would be that we're going to try to get housing, non-student housing, some sort of ideal affordable housing, whether or not that's the lower income, that's not necessarily correct, but it will be in that umbrella that the local communities classify as workforce housing.
I was going to ask you, how do you define affordable?
Yeah, affordable is below the median income. So your blue collar workers, your policemen, your community people that aren't white collar, that tends to be the renters or the purchasers of the properties that we're looking at.
I have one concern. I know it's very early in the process, but my concern is traffic.
Yeah, we obviously, we understand, and I believe staff will concur with this. If this does get rezoned, we have to go through the process, land development project, traffic impact study as staff sees appropriate, go through the land development process, zoning, what have you. So our first goal is if it doesn't get rezoned, then we, HFL will probably back away from the project because we don't think that there's, based upon the cost of the site itself, that we could even break even. But we would go through that process through the land development process.
I don't have any more questions for you, Mr. Stafford. Does anyone else on Planning Commission have any other questions? I have a question related to something else, but, so I think we said at the last meeting that part of this process was to get public input from the people in that area. So that will happen before we move forward with anything, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I know that that corridor of people have come to a lot of meetings, I know, in the past, so I think it would be a good idea.
There are definitely notification requirements for
Good.
rezoning, but I
Yeah,
think what
right.
we probably also want to do is push something out via our social media and our e-newsletter to let folks know that you guys are going to discuss this at the August meeting. And Leslie will have a report prepared for you to kind of take everything in, but then take their consideration in as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that's been a discussion point in the past, is to make sure that we have good communication in various ways, so no one is sort of quote-unquote blindsided and not knowing what's going on, so. Okay, those are all my thoughts. Anything else from the Planning Commission? Because I guess what we have to do is just say that we're going to have the staff do a full analysis of this going forward.
Correct.
Do we need to make a formal motion for that?
You don't necessarily need to. If there's anything you're particularly interested in, I know I heard Jim say about the traffic, but if there's anything else that you're interested in, we can pass that along to Leslie as well as she does the
Yeah,
analysis.
I'm going to double down on the traffic as well. I had that written down. And then the other thing is just to make sure we involve the public in that area.
And since it's so close to Walmart, I was wondering if there's any way to like have a pedestrian pathway to Walmart, especially if it's for seniors. I mean, it seems like a good,
Crosswalk
Yeah.
to the corner, Clearview and
There,
Biro, whatever it is, Waddle.
I was gonna say, just across the road from this parcel, there is a trail that leads down into the Walmart site. It kinda,
so
it's a couple hundred feet away from the intersection, and it leads down around toward the back of the site.
This is right here.
And if I can add to that, I may, also, with the planning that we're going, we intend, again, to meet, we understand that pedestrian walkways are very important. So we do plan on putting sidewalks along those streets that we have. We have to raise the elevation up to tie into where the drain is, but we're going to do that as we move forward with the land development project. We already know what we want to do, how we want to lay it out. That's something I can share with staff when you're, do your review. If you want to just reach out to me, maybe or I'll provide whatever I can.
Will parking be underneath the building, or will you provide enough parking spaces, because it's only 2.25 acres?
Yeah, so it's interesting question. When we first looked at it, we can actually develop the building, so based upon the zoning requirements in R3, we know that we can develop 31 units, so we know it's an absolute number based upon the zone area, right? There's a density requirement.
Sure.
Our intent is that we actually probably will have half of the parking under the building. That helps us with some elevation issues and also reduce our impervious coverage. So, again, I can provide those concepts to you guys. We have a concept where we have all parking spaces on the backside of the building. We have a concept, we have a portion of them under the building. And it actually is a better layout, helps us with some elevations, so that you can drive behind the building, then under the building, get to the parking lot in the rear. The stormwater basin will be at the bottom of the property towards the grid. So yeah, that's our intent right now. We probably have a portion of it under the building.
Anyone else that has any thoughts or comments? Okay, so we'll just, I guess at this point, just wait to hear back from a staff analysis of things.
Yeah, we'll plan to have that ready for your August meeting, and we'll make sure that we do outreach to the residents that live around that property, because I know that they have been talking about, have some friends that live over that way, so they're interested in what's gonna happen, so we'll make sure they're invited to the meeting.
They'll come to the August meeting? Okay.
Oh, good.
Rich,
Yeah.
I do believe this gentleman wanted to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I would like to make a statement. My name is Larry Parco. I currently reside at 100 East Clearview Avenue. My family and I are very long-term residents in this neighborhood. When we moved here to 142 Clearview Avenue in 1960, it was not even an official township road. What would eventually become the media complex was not even there. When it was constructed in 1961 for WRSC, it was nothing more than a concrete block shed and a radio tower. In 1964, we began construction on what would eventually become the family homestead, as it were, at 100 East Clearview, and we moved in during the summer of 1974. The ambiance of the neighborhood has always been a major selling point for this neighborhood. The addition of Coventry Place only added to that ambiance. A calm environment with quiet streets and park areas are important to families, especially those with young children. The addition of this complex would severely impact the ambiance in a negative way. Furthermore, the additional congestion would be added to an already weak infrastructure. Traffic is already a problem, as you have noted. Many times during the day, especially at the intersection of Clearview Avenue and Waddle Road, it is nasty. We don't need more. Therefore, I must voice my opposition to this proposal and request that it ultimately be denied. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Okay, anyone else have anything that they'd like to say on planning commission or from the public?
Well, I kind of agree with Larry. I would be, I mean, it looks like most of the neighborhood is single-family units. And I do think when you put the apartment complex in something like that, it does change a lot of things, not only just traffic, but it changes in the ambiance, but I mean, let's face it, more crime comes in when you have that kind of thing going on, because you have more people in there. I think it should stay R2, personally.
What does staff need us to do to move forward?
Basically, just your concurrence that you would like us to do the staff level analysis so that you can consider this further.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yep.
I mean, that's not changing anything, that's just analyzing the
Analyzing it.
property.
Yep.
And I think I would, I would encourage, sir, to when we have when we have a formal public comment, to be coming back to, revoice your thoughts as you just did, tonight.
I have a question. So if we change this from R2 to R3, what would prevent somebody keeping it in R2 and doing something in townhouse situation anyway?
If it gets rezoned to be R3, right, yeah, it's going from R2 to R3.
Right.
It would, then anything that's allowed within the R3 zoning district could be done on that property. So
Okay.
whatever the allowable uses, that's something that when we look through the analysis, we'll make sure you understand what those allowable uses are. Because you open up, in Pennsylvania, they don't allow you to do contract zoning, so you open up sort of the Pandora's box to everything.
Right.
And that's one of the things you want to consider as you consider the rezoning request is it may not end up being affordable units for seniors. It may end up being student housing. It may end up being townhomes. It may end up being something else. And you need to consider all of those possibilities when you review Leslie's report.
Right. My concern is with Bolton Avenue, I mean, all those new houses on Bolton Avenue, on top of what Larry is saying, those houses are selling 300,000 to 500,000. So what does that do to that neighborhood with additional building?
Well, right now, I would say let's see what the report is, let's see what can be done. If there's other things that we can do to get get everybody on the same page and get everybody to an agreeable state, then we should look at that. If we can't, then we will make that decision at a later time. But right now, I'd like more information.
What is the load, for R2, what is the density on a property that size? Would that be quarter acre lots? So we're talking about
Basically,
approximately
what you
eight
see right there,
houses?
yeah.
Probably less than that even whenever, because you have to get the roadway in there to support that and so forth. So,
7 or 6 or 7, okay. Okay.
Okay, so we will be hearing more at our next meeting in August after the staff analysis. Okay, sounds good. And thank you again for coming this evening. Okay, so that now goes to work tasks for the Planning Commission and staff. We had a survey sent out, and I'm not going to read through all these percentages. We have them in front of us. But I guess what we do need to do is, as a Planning Commission, give some type of priority within each of the categories to see what we want to do moving forward. So I guess I'll just read it. So the top long-term priority is the affordable housing at 83%. So I would say, since it's 83%, to me, I would say, you know, most of us are in agreement that that's a high priority, long-term thing that we want to look at. I don't want to speak for anyone, but I think that is something that we're sort of all in agreement on, quote unquote, to move forward with that as a long-term Planning Commission priority.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that came up at the last meeting when we were questioning, what was that meeting? Or maybe it was Center Regional. It was Center Regional, I'm sorry. How do you go about trying to get affordable housing? I mean, you can't, there's a certain amount of funding out there that's locked in to certain types of buildings for the first time that they go on the market, but after that, there's no tie-in. And we're talking about a township where our taxes are so high that, I mean, affordable housing sort of is kind of a...
If I'm not mistaken, our taxes are lower than the rest of COG.
They're, yeah, I think lower than most of COG.
But all of COG is pretty high.
I think the point that you bring up is a good one, which
I
is...
mean, property taxes alone.
Right, well, but affordable housing, right, isn't a nut that I don't think Patton Township can crack by itself. I don't think it's something that State College Borough can crack by themselves. The county did the attainable housing study, which I think you might have seen at the CRPC level, or you might...
Yes.
Yeah, so they've been looking at it, but it's gonna take an effort amongst sort of everybody. I know in other places in the state, down like in Lancaster County where they've had this done, it's been a developer that came in from the Philadelphia area and said, oh, I'll build market rate houses next to affordable units and you won't be able to tell the difference, and I'll put 700 units in and I'll make a concerted effort to do this. We haven't really seen that concerted effort here. We've, had little bits and starts and stops and stutters, and so I think it's a larger discussion piece than just this area. We also don't control our own water and sewer here. We have authorities that do that. And a big part of some of the affordable housing programs, like in Maryland, for example, is they waive tapping fees because they have control over utilities. So they try to make the cost of construction lower so that the developer then sees the financial incentive to do the affordable housing. So I think it's something that needs to be discussed globally across the county, not just even the region. And it's something we have been discussing for many years. We just have never been able to crack that nut for some reason in this area.
Well, are there ways that we can, if we like designate something for affordable housing, are there ways that we can, to manage or supervise that it is becoming affordable housing and not just market rate housing?
Yeah, there are, there's the land trust model, which State College uses pretty successfully, and then there's the Center County Housing Land Trust, which is trying to do that elsewhere in the county. So that's certainly a model where the land would stay with the people, with the land trust itself or with the entity that owns it, and that helps keep it affordable. The person doesn't own the land, they own the home that they're living in. So there are definitely models that we need to think about looking at like that. And I know Ferguson Township years ago tried their traditional town development to put in an affordable component, and I don't think anybody took them up on the incentives that they built into it to try to get them affordable units. College Township had a Operation Welcome Mat program a bunch of years ago as well, and I'm not sure that was ever very successful. So I think it's something that we need to continue having the conversations about and trying to convince, I think part of it too is the development community that this is something worthwhile that maybe they want to make an investment in.
That's why we need to look at everything. I mean, we're not going to solve it at all, but at the same time, if we don't talk about it and we don't try to come up with solutions to solve it, then we're not going to solve it, period.
Right. Rich, Betsy Whitman has her hand up on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, please, Betsy.
You're muted, Betsy.
Still muted.
You still can't. Betsy, we still can't hear you for some reason. No.
No.
Have her call in.
Yeah. Betsy, do you want to try to call my cell phone and I can put you on speakerphone? Okay.
Now, while we wait for Betsy, some of the other things that I've suggested in the past have been, when we go back to rezoning, maybe not necessarily in this particular case that was before us just a few minutes ago, but allowing developers to redevelop their commercial properties to be a combination of commercial on the bottom and residential on the top, because that can always, potentially bring in. What ultimately we need is we need more units, period. More units is eventually going to bring down,
Rental prices.
well, prices in general.
Houses.
So,
So Betsy's on the cell phone.
Can you hear? Uh-oh.
It's okay, we can hear you.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for bringing up affordable housing again. It's a topic that's near and dear to many of us on the board. And also just thanks for being the Planning Commission. I'd like to stop in a couple times every year, mostly to thank you for all you do. And affordable housing is the main reason I jumped on today. I do want to remind the Planning Commissioner, point out, if you don't know, that 2 years ago, our former supervisor, Anita Tees, led a commission in Patton Township. We kind of set the pace on affordable housing. There used to be an affordable housing coalition, which just disbanded out of, who knows, things rise and fall. But having elected officials involved gave the other participants a boost of energy. So I was looking on my shelf for that copy, don't have it, but Amy, I'm certain that there's some available. It really is a very comprehensive effort, and as I want to second what Bill said, I think it was Bill said that if we don't start somewhere, it won't get done. And I'll remind everybody also that a couple of years ago, the Planning Commission launched what I thought was just really a very creative, think outside the box plan to look at zoning change for one of our areas. It was, I believe, an overlay on some of the R2 areas. Affordable, as you all know, affordable housing is kind of a lightning rod issue nowadays across the nation. People like the idea of it, but they don't necessarily like the idea of having it in their backyard. It is a national problem, and I really think kudos to Patton Township for tackling it. It is part of why we are a place for all. So I will get off my little soapbox right now and just admiringly follow the conversation here and support you from afar. We'll work on this together. So thanks so much. Bye. Thanks, Amy.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you, Betsy. Jim, I know you were involved with that. Anything that you'd like to say, just because Betsy referred to the work that you did and the other members 2 years
Do not
ago?
throw out the word duplexes. But there was a lot of NIMBYism when I felt that it was brought forward the wrong way, publicly. We were actually wanting more public input, and it was put out as if we were changing the ordinance. And we weren't. We were still thinking and talking about it. And everybody came out of the woodwork as far as NIMBY, not in my backyard. So, as said before, it's a regional problem, not just our township. But something has to be done, and each little step we can make is for the good.
Well, and I think also, if you look even across the state, there has to be even buy-in on the state level that they want to make some of this a priority, PFHA, whoever, needs to make it a priority in, throughout the county and the Commonwealth, that they want to try to make this happen and incentivize the people developing it to do it, period.
Absolutely.
Okay, if everyone's comfortable with that, let's go to 2. So the next is, for the second long-term priority, the planned airport district, which was at 50%. So is everyone comfortable to prioritize that secondly as the second long-term priority? Okay. I know that we have been approached in the past, and for the lack of a better term, that whole area is a hodgepodge of zoning from 70s. And so I'm in agreement that I think that's a second long-term priority to take a look at. So then moving on, now this was a little bit closer. A short-term high priority was the commercial zoning districts. That was at 50%. And then the right-of-way regulations, which was at 33.3. So, since that was a little more closer together, I'd like to see if we could maybe have some discussion on what do we want to make the highest priority, or if everyone's just comfortable with the one that was at 50%.
I can't remember what I voted for, so I think I'm okay with commercial zoning districts. And what is staff's feeling on the commercial zoning district? What is it that we're going to be doing on that work task?
Nicole? That's the one that had the laundry list of things that were in the commercial zone, and we were like, what are some of these things? Why are they all in here?
Well, did that come up when we were approached
The
about the
storage.
storage
Yeah.
units?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
There's
Yep.
several uses permitted and, yeah.
Yeah, that were
Okay.
strange.
Gotcha.
All right, so, long-term housing, long-term second, Plain Airport District, short-term high priority, the commercial zoning district, short-term second priority at 33.3% was the sign ordinance. Are we all okay with that, or would we like to look at the others that were all at 16.7?
I kind of think firemen's are a bit more important, personally.
I thought the tree one wasn't that a higher one? Oh, wait, maybe I misunderstood that. It seemed like work was already done on that, the tree ordinance.
I think there was some work done on it, correct?
There was some, but I think the goal, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Public Works Directors met last week, and what they would like to do is possibly Center Region-wide have one list of
that makes
recommended
sense.
tree species.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's true.
So that's kind of the hope.
Okay.
And can we add into ours where it has to be at least 3 of those species mixed in so that we don't
It would be a
get
mix
all
of
of them
species.
done
Yeah.
at the same time?
Yeah.
Whatever pest comes
Yeah.
into being.
Right. So, Sharon, you would like to see as a second-term priority the fire lane versus the sign ordinance. Am I correct in
Yeah.
saying that? Okay. Bill?
I would rather see the sign ordinance.
Okay. Jim?
Signs.
Okay. Ellen?
I'm agnostic, but I'll do signs.
Okay.
That's fine.
Debbie?
Sign.
Okay. I'm okay with signs too.
If you think we're touching the third rail on things like workforce housing and affordable housing, the sign ordinance is,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
And the sign ordinance is gonna be more of a heavy lift on the staff side of things, because there's been Supreme Court cases that have come out that
Right.
we can't regulate content, you can't regulate size, there's all kinds of things that you can't do now with signs.
Right.
Ferguson's sign ordinance is like 15 pages long, so,
Oh my God.
yeah. I
Yeah,
don't think we
it's-
need that, but,
No.
It really is crazy, and I've sent stuff over to staff before, so I don't know who has it now, or if it's all gone, and I have to find it again and send it over to you guys.
I think I actually may have it.
Yeah.
I think it may have been passed to me.
Okay, so is our work done, Amy, from your perspective and staff's, in terms of what we need to communicate to you all for our work task priorities?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think you went with the top choice for everything, so that makes it a little bit easier on us.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? This has to do with things we've talked about before, but I don't think they've made it to even like consideration on the work. So we talked about like incentives for solar, things that sort of tie back to the, climate action plan, and it's fine if it's being considered as a whole, like the whole cog, but I just didn't know like where those things fall out, or like the light, energy conservation, where the light pollution could fall under that. I guess I'm just wondering, are those things somehow getting, what happens to, all those recommendations were in that climate action plan?
So that's a great question, and that's one that I can follow up with the COG to see what the Climate Action Study Committee has been doing. They have a technical group that's also helping them, so I can find out sort of where those recommendations have gone and what they're doing with
Okay.
them.
There were a number of recommendations that had to do with ordinance changes,
Yep.
and I just wondered if somebody was looking at that rather than on a locality basis, on the basis.
Okay.
Oh, Betsy has her hand up again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Betsy, we're not going to be able to hear you unless you call me again. Here we go. Okay, Betsy, you're on.
Sorry about that. The Climate Action and Sustainability Committee just today talked about 82 actionable items that are within the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. We focused on those that were under the purview of municipalities and for municipalities and the region. So those will be coming, we narrowed it down to, I think, 27 of those. Those will be coming to the Board of Supervisors, and Amy, here are my, 37 local ones, my list to talk to get a working session for the board, whatever. So Ellen, to answer your question, there are very specific goals, actionable items within that the Board of Supervisors will be looking at. So, and I even invite you to, come to the planning meeting once Amy sets it up, whatever. So it is not forgotten. Thanks. And thank you again for the phone.
Thanks, Betsy.
Solution. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Nicole, I think, has something she wants to
go
add.
ahead.
Under the short-term top highest priority, the one thing township staff might also suggest, along with the commercial zoning, is to also consider the right-of-way regulations. Currently, right now, Patton Township does not have any requirements when a utility company wants to do an open cut on the street. So we don't have anything that says, yes, you can do this, it needs to be done during this time frame, has to be the top coat, so that is one thing at staff level we would also like to try to just, it kind of helps the Public Works Department out too when they come to do overlays, whether or not an individual is going to be open cutting a street 6 weeks after they've already overlaid it, so.
Technically also falls into the sign ordinance right away. Because we can regulate signs in the
Yep.
right of way.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll put that in there. Well, and that was 33% for the highest priority. So, okay. That is certainly helpful. Anything else on Planning Commission work tasks before we move on to status on pending items?
You will need to make a recommendation to go to the board.
Oh, okay. So can I have a motion to recommend the affordable housing as the top long-term priority, the planned airport district as the second priority, and I don't know how to phrase this, if we're comfortable with this, a short-term top highest priority of the commercial zoning district, along with what would help out staff, the right-of-way regs as well, if the planning commission's okay with that, and then the short-term second priority is the sign ordinance. So I hope I communicated that clearly. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of those priorities for the Planning Commission say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. And, I think whenever we tackle these, however we're structuring this, if we're doing a work session at another time or after the meeting, since we have, two in that one category, we can figure out what makes sense, because I think some of these have a lot of overlap. I don't think it's like separated. Because, I think we obviously want to help staff out with the right-of-way, because I think that goes into a lot of different things.
And just to reiterate that, we're not going to be able to do the sign ordinance without a right-of-way law in Patton Township. So we're going to have right-of-ways in order to use the biggest
Yep.
controlling factor
Right.
that we have.
Yep.
Right. Okay, so that takes us down to status report on pending items. There is a PDF on an attainable housing update, which is 130 pages. So we'll have a quiz on that on August 15th. I'm back at work then, so I can quiz you, Sharon. But that's fine. You know, in all seriousness, the one thing that I did look at, as I was looking through is, you know, we have, on page 16, we are below what the state's home ownership rate is by 7-8 points. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of ancillary factors for that, but, you know, I think that sort of doubles down on what we discussed earlier in terms of, you know, how can we try to get this housing figured out countywide, statewide, et cetera. So, anyone have comments? Staff have any comments on this at all? Okay. All right, so we're moving on to other business. Highlights of the CRPC meeting on June 1st. We have an amendment to Chapter 181, Sewers and Sewage Disposal, Chapter 255, Zoning in Half Moon Township. Number 2 is Center County Solutions-Based Housing Study, Preliminary Opportunities and Challenges in the Center Region. And then 3 is the Center Region 2040 Draft Schedule and Draft Community Engagement Survey. Anyone want to say anything on 8A in terms of other business? Okay, we will go down to 8B. Benner Township Ordinance Amendments, request for comment. No additional comments or action taken. Number 2 was the 160 Clearview Avenue, which we discussed. I was hoping to get more insight on 3. Proposed ordinance for 2023-630 Center Region Property Maintenance and Fire Code, public hearing, possible adoption scheduled on July 19th, 2023. And then 4 is to amend the Patton Township fee schedule to include the SEO fees in the CR code for sewer management services. So I was just curious what the change was with the property maintenance and fire code.
So they go through, the Center Region Code Office goes through and updates that, I think they do it every 5 years, so the last time it was done was 2017. So this just makes changes that are in the overarching building codes, that kind of thing.
Oh,
And it's a
okay.
fire safety code as well.
Okay. I didn't know if it was anything more than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing too earth-shattering.
Okay.
Nothing to report.
Oh, okay. Planning commit, and then, okay, so now we have C, which we were given some review guides with some things in terms of the role of the planning commission with rezoning requests and reviewing them. The role of the planning commission in reviewing subdivision and land development plans. The role of the planning commission in to review a proposed ordinance text amendment, and then planning commission training resources, which this is an extension of what we started last time, where we were given some information on some things that would, you know, I think be beneficial for all of us. We'll be continuing to look at these on the horizon, obviously.
Yeah, as your work agenda allows, we'd like to continue to do some more education for you, because we think that's probably beneficial in your role as planning commission members. So if you have topics that you want to see us discuss or bring up, please let us know. We're happy to bring anything before you that you're interested in hearing more about. Bill looks like he's got plenty of topics.
I can just go right through the entire binder and just pull one for you guys.
Here, I'll give you a fresh legal pad. Okay, is there anything else that we would like to discuss on the planning commission? Okay,
An off-topic question, but, you know, that can wait until after. I was gonna say, whatever happened to the design of the new Patton Township logo?
Oh, I'm glad
Good
you brought
question.
that up. I was actually gonna be reaching out to the folks that are on that. That was something that Doug left for me. So I was gonna hopefully reach out end of this month, beginning of next month to start
What
talking
he said
about
he
it.
was gonna do in April.
Yes,
Okay.
he sent me an email about that and said, here you go, before he left. So yes, that was on my agenda of things to bring up and get the subcommittee going on that.
Okay. Anything else?
Only other thing I have to ask, as far as maybe Public Works or whatever, how long are they gonna be working in front of Aldi's there on North Atherton? That was a total mess this morning.
Unfortunately, that's gonna continue for a little bit because that was the gas line they were working on installing. They started last week, and so they're continuing. And then we're going to be having a temporary signal installed, because right now the signal poles are within part of the development area that they're gonna be putting some roadway and stuff, so they need to install some temporary signals until the development continues further, and then we'll eventually get the final signal design in place.
So what
So
you're,
it's gonna continue, unfortunately.
so what you're saying is we need to get the right-of-way ordinance done for you guys.
I have a question about all that stuff. So whenever, like, the gas company or the cable companies or whatever, can they just tell you that they need to cut into the road and, or do you guys have like a schedule that's like open time slots?
What the township has always attempted to do is, we've attempted to avoid allowing any open cutting of streets that have been overlaid within the last 5 years. Now, the problem you run into there is if somebody is going to attempt to directional drill or bore under the street, if they start to go under the street and for some reason the piece of equipment gets stuck, it fails, or, they wind up digging the street up to get their tool back that gets stuck under the road. Part of what we're looking at is we want to have regulations that require how that restoration has to be with the new regulations regarding the right-of-way. Because at the moment, they can just fill the void back in and put asphalt back. But the issue, we want to be able to back the asphalt up a little bit so that whenever they open a 24-inch trench, that we might have a 4 or 5 foot gap in the asphalt so that they can compact enough material on the sides where the trench was. Because whenever we dig a trench through, we disturb the soil and we wind up with areas that even if they compact the trench line, what's beside it they don't have compacted. And so we have failure in the roadway. It might not be for 4 or 5 years later, but we'll still have failure in the roadway because we don't have proper compaction there. So what we're attempting to do is avoid that. And yes, we do have a time where we try to avoid letting people open cut a roadway. I mean, Ryan Confer issues all of our, highway occupancy permits, and Ryan is very good at saying no whenever they ask about open cutting. But there are times that we have to allow that because if an electric line fails or something, people need to have electricity, they need to have water and sewer and so on, so that
Don't
does
they have
happen.
like huge conduits under there that they can just like climb down a manhole and?
Well, unfortunately, no. No, years ago in the 70s and 80s and even into the early 90s, like electrical cables were just direct buried right into the soil. And what we're having with the soil we have around here, the neutral wire was just stranded wire around the outside of the cable. And some of those neutral wires are degrading, and that's why they're replacing a lot of electrical lines and so forth that are buried. But they are installing conduit now, so in the future, they'll be able to just pull the old wire out, pull a new one in. But at the moment, a lot of the locations with electrical wires and even gas lines and so forth, they're going to all plastic gas lines where previously we had steel gas lines in the road and so forth or in the ground. So we're upgrading everything so that 50 years from now, they're not going to be able to complain as much about what the folks did previously, but we're getting there.
Is this what's going on North Oak Lane, Canterbury?
North Oak Lane, they are replacing the sewer line. Canterbury Drive, they're replacing a water line, and we replaced some storm water line as well. So Canterbury is slated to be overlaid this year, so that will be taken care of. North Oak Lane, we're hoping to have that on next year's overlay schedule and hoping to have that taken care of at that point in
When
time.
you say overlay, paved and done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. North Oak Lane needs new curbing and pavement.
It's the Conestoga.
We're aware.
It is.
So, yeah, that's next year's, the very first project that's gonna go out for pavement. We're probably gonna try to get that out in January just to see where we're at in the market, and hopefully we'll have some more, we'll wind up with funds left over from our paving budget that we can use for other projects, but we need to find out where we're standing with North Oak Lane first.
Does the township pay for all these overlays?
Yes, ma'am.
So the people who like have the gas lines and the water lines and all of that stuff, they're not paying for that? They're not reimbursing us?
Well, depending on, now we do have an agreement with the Water Authority on Canterbury where they're doing work, and there's a percentage of that overlay that will be reimbursed to the township because they are going through and installing water line and so forth. So we do work with the Water Authority and the Sewer Authority and so forth whenever some of those projects come through.
Because those are all public works organizations, so yeah.
Yes.
But what about like all the private companies that,
They need to restore the road, and that's, as we had said, why we want to have the right-of-way ordinance, so that we make sure their restoration is going to last as long as the road needs to last until we overlay it again.
and do we inspect that? Like, we.
That would be
they-
part-
They have to pass, oh, that's part of the right of way?
That would be part of the
Okay.
right-of-way ordinance, would be the requirement of them to restore it to this, standard, and there would be an inspector from the township that would make sure that that was happening. and
At
they were doing
different
that.
stages,
Yes.
okay.
Well, Rich, can I make a motion that we direct staff to write that ordinance up for us to review? Because they seem to already have it. They seem to already have what they want.
Well, we can move it up on the priority list.
I think it sounds like it should be the priority.
Yes.
So,
It
sort
Sounds
of
like
what
it's
you're,
something that we can actually get done.
Get done, and it's costing us a lot of money and a lot of aggravation.
so if they quote unquote put a road back,
Mhm.
like, okay, say on my street, I'll just use my street, North Oak, as an example.
Mhm.
Because every time I drive down, I have to go to Honda to get new suspension on my car. But that's fine, because that's my cost. But anyway, so say they put, everything is being done, I think, very professionally based on the things that they're facing with weather and everything else. But if 4, 5, 6 years down the line, what I'm hearing is if because of not having the right-of-way standards in place to put things back the way that would be best for
Yes.
long-term viability,
Mhm.
we're having to incur unforeseen costs, quote unquote, because of not having the right-of-way parameters to try to make it last more than 5 years.
Correct.
I think we need to move this all the way up to the top of the list.
Yes,
I agree.
I do.
Part-
I mean, long-term goal, yes, we need
More affordable housing.
We need more housing,
Yes.
right?
But
But
this is
let's
township
start with,
business.
let's start with a softball that we can knock out of the park.
Mhm.
So,
And another thing too, Sharon, just the public works entities, we do work together, and we put out, and when we do our capital projects and so forth, we forecast where we're gonna be doing overlays, and then those utilities know we're gonna be doing overlays on those locations, So they attempt to have their infrastructure upgraded before we do that overlay.
So it's all,
That's-
they try to coordinate everything.
Yeah, that's why the Water Authority is on Canterbury this year, because they know we're gonna overlay Canterbury Road. Same as UAJ is working on North Oak, because they know that's on the schedule to be going through, next year. So, and the gas company and the power company and the cable and phone company, all those are given that information so that they can attempt to upgrade their facilities on those roads prior to us doing an overlay, so that we can get it beyond that 5-year window whenever they would need to go back in.
So do we need to make a motion to make the, to move that to number 1?
An
Well,
amendment.
Amendment?
I think we could do a friendly amendment
is
and
that,
a vote.
so we're going to short-term highest priority to make the right-of-way the top priority.
Right.
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so, I have a first and second to make a friendly amendment to put the right-of-way regulations as the highest short-term priority for us to focus on for the Planning Commission work task. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I guess from my purview, I didn't realize that that right-of-way had so many intricacies and complexities that kind of is an umbrella over a lot of the operations and finances that are entailed on a daily basis, short-term and long-term.
Well, that's why Public Works is here today to
Yeah.
let us know, and
Yep, thank you. But
you're welcome.
Yeah, so I'm glad that was worked out.
And like I said, we'll need that, we'll actually need the right-of-way expanded out from the road on either side to control sign ordinances anyways. So that's gonna be one of the tripping hazards. So we can get roads done, but that's gonna be an ever-moving target on the rest of it. So I think we should focus on getting roads done and then adding.
Well, and I
Have you
think-
written up for us by next meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think also, the main control for the right-of-way is Patton Township, whereas with affordable housing,
It's everybody else.
we have one area that we can sort of have some oversight, but it's not just Patton, whereas the right-of-way is Patton. So I think that makes sense.
It does.
Okay, having said all that, are there any other comments before we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I just would like to say thank you to our visitor who spoke.
Yes, thank you again, and we hope to see you in the future.
With all your neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I was actually told 2 weeks ago that none of this project had been proposed or that there was any paperwork filed.
I would,
I came into the office, asked the question at the desk, and I don't know who it was, I didn't see a name tag or anything. Somebody told me that nothing had been done, that it would be on the website if it ever was.
Yeah, technically, it's not a project yet, it's going through the rezoning process. And there are notification requirements as part of the rezoning process as well. But you're right to come in now at this step of it, and we'll make sure that your neighbors also know about this, so they can come back in August when it's discussed. Because nothing has been decided. Right now, this project can't move forward unless the planning commission and the board decide to endorse the rezoning.
and we haven't,
Okay, so we're talking semantics here.
yes,
Yes.
I would say
The
that
way I
this,
asked the question was not necessarily the best way to ask the question.
But it got you here, and that's great.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because I kept checking the website to find out when this meeting was going to be.
this happens a lot where people will ask, well, it has this project started, and they categorize it as once they've filed for like a permit to do building, and they haven't even done that, they haven't even submitted plans yet, so getting in early, if we do move that way or we do move against them, you're gonna be able to see how the process goes through. And maybe there's some compromise that you can suggest and come to that will help you and your neighbors out and help Patton Township out as a whole. But, you know, we have to see everything. I like to see everything all the way down to, is there going to be, how much light pollution is there going to be before I make any of my choices? So don't hold it against me that I move things forward so I can see what's going on. Yeah.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Okay,
Move.
can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here.